Hello and how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest Bethesda news, rumors, and speculation, and I have some of the biggest Starfield news for you all in today's video. And I know that's kind of crazy to hear, right? Because we've gotten a lot more Starfield news and information over the last week or so than we probably would have ever believed we would have received, especially when you remember that we didn't get a huge Starfield showcase, and I pretty much broke all of it down in the last like 5 days or so here on the channel, but there are a couple of other big pieces of Starfield news that I wanted to do an entire video on just on these pieces of information, and there's one of two reasons for that. The first is because this information is behind a paywall, which is an article I talked about earlier from the Telegraph, and I wasn't sure if I could talk about this particular piece of information, but other people on other gaming news websites are talking about it, so I'm assuming it's safe to talk about it as well, unless they just round us all up and put us up against the wall for the Telegraph firing squad because we dared to talk about their secretive Todd Howard paywall interview. But the second reason I'm talking about this today is because this particular piece of news, like I said earlier, is big enough that it warrants an entire video on its own, and in my opinion is one of the biggest pieces of information from the post-Starfield 2021 E3 interviews that we have gotten thus far. So let's not waste any more time and let's break all of this down. Mondays are usually very slow, especially in terms of gaming news, so hopefully I can spice your Monday up with some Starfield spice time. And today's information comes from that secretive Telegraph, paywall, Todd Howard, Starfield, additional nouns, additional title name interview. And for some reason, unlike 99% of every other gaming news website, the Telegraph decided to put this particular interview behind a big old greedy McGreedy pants paywall. However, I still got access to this information without paying for it thanks to the community. And those of you who watched my video a couple days ago where I broke down all of the post-E3 2021 Starfield interviews, you may be quite familiar with this interview already, and like I said in that video, I didn't want to completely break this interview down because it was behind a paywall, and I didn't want them to activate Dark Brotherhood lawyer mode and like sue me or try to take the video down or anything. But more information about this article did pop up and was shared, so like I said, I feel like it's safe to talk about it in today's video. And in the last video I only broke down the majority of the information in this article because I didn't want to step on their toes too much, but now I want to talk about this particular piece of information because Todd Howard was asked about the size of his Starfield, and he said it's very big and very long. And I'm not even kidding. Todd Howard literally said the size of his Starfield is very big and very long. And yes, I'm kidding a little bit, but also not really. That actually was his exact statement, except he didn't say his Starfield. Just the 12-year-old in me saw that he said it was very big and very long, and that had me internally giggling. But nonetheless, this is the particular statement from this Telegraph article right here. Like I said, Todd Howard was asked about the size of Starfield, and he said the game is very big and very long. And I guess that makes sense because one thing that has stood out to me about Starfield and about what Todd Howard has said about Starfield very recently is that Todd Howard wants Starfield to be the first big next-gen RPG or true next-gen RPG of this generation to be played. And he says the first one, meaning he expects Starfield to be on a whole nother level above any other next-gen RPG. And I say next-gen in quotes because it's technically current generation now, but I really don't think we've seen the capacity or the true capabilities of what this current generation of gaming can do. Maybe Starfield will be the first RPG that'll show us this, according to what Todd Howard says. And if this statement is to be true, this big 16 times the detail talking up the game statement from Todd Howard, if that is to be true, if the game is supposed to be the first big next-gen RPG experience, then the game would have to definitely have a very large game world and also be very long. Most Bethesda Game Studios games are very long, even if you don't mod the game. If you try to do all the content in the game, it takes you well over 100 hours, if not more. I think I have like over 500 hours logged in a modded Skyrim save, so Starfield will probably be that, only multiplied by even more. And one particular thing in the game world being very big is, it's a space game, right? And, well, space is huge. Most of space is just empty, literal void. Sure, there might be some asteroids and planets floating around in there, but I hope that Todd Howard isn't considering the empty void of space as actual part of the playable game world, regardless of whether or not we can actually fly around in space. I hope that he means playable game world in terms of planetary surfaces, space stations, asteroids we can run around on, whatever, and not just the empty void of space here, because that would be kind of like, that would be very, very shady if that's what was being twisted here as fact. But I don't think that's the case here. Like I said, if Todd Howard is talking this game up, it'll blow up in his face if it doesn't live up to those expectations, and for a game that we won't see for another year and a half, he's certainly making some pretty big major statements about it. But in this article, he continues to further explain what he means by Starfield, his Starfield, being very big and very long. He says, "I don't want to set any crazy expectations for that, even though Skullzi is here to do that for you, Todd." He continues by saying, "You know, we have cities and we built them in Starfield like we've built cities in our games before. And we have locations in Starfield that we're building like the ones we've built before. And we want that experience of you exploring those locations to be, you know, as rewarding as we've done before. There are some different spins on that given the subject matter," and by that he means Starfield is in space and not a high fantasy game like The Elder Scrolls or an apocalyptic game like Fallout. So he says the subject matter is different compared to the games they've made before and the cities they've made before, but he likes that about games. Todd Howard wants us to just point ourselves in a direction and walk and have our curiosity be piqued and hopefully rewarded, and that kind of has always been a gameplay principle from Bethesda. Like take Skyrim for example, you walk up to a hillside and you can just see the valley in the distance and all the interesting things that you can go to in the valley, little towns, a lake, a bandit camp, all stuff like that, and things like that have been in Fallout before too, like just walking out of the vault on that little scenic overlook and just seeing the wasteland and all the locations you can go and how it just feels endless. It seems like Starfield will be that, but only in space, which is like probably going to be even more endless feeling because space. Todd Howard continues by saying, "Yes, the game will indeed be very, very big. People are still playing Skyrim, and we have learned from that. We spent more time building Starfield to be played for a long time." So what it seems like he's saying here is that they particularly built Starfield to be played for a very, very long time. So I'm wondering if Starfield will have a lot more DLC and expanded game content added to it more than any other Bethesda game before, because it seems like Oblivion was like the game that had the most DLC, if I remember correctly. Nonetheless, Todd Howard is saying that they're probably going to be paying particular attention into the longevity of Starfield, so hopefully it's not just endless No Man's Sky procedural generation, or if it does do something like that, it's at least not like that and better. And No Man's Sky is good, but I want handcrafted worlds from Bethesda, not just a AI just spamming random rocks and plants and calling it a planet. Todd Howard says, "If you so choose, you can just keep playing Starfield for a very long time. It's got some more hooks in it, particularly for that reason. Things that we added later on in games like Skyrim. We'll still making sure that someone who just wants to play it and go through the main quest and win feels accomplished, and that they're still doing something large but doable." Now, I did take some creative liberties in Todd Howard's quotes here just to further explain and add a little bit more parameters to what he's saying so that way you knew about whether he was talking about like Starfield and stuff like that. But that's basically everything Todd Howard said in that particular statement that I wanted to cover in today's video. Like I said, even though this is just a couple paragraphs here that are behind a paywall for some reason, Telegraph, these paragraphs are still huge and in my opinion some of the biggest Starfield news to date. He's literally saying Starfield will be very long and very large, and that just gets me super excited for more ways than what someone would just giggle about if they thought Dirty Mind stuff. It seems like Starfield is going to have a lot of focus from Bethesda Game Studios, not just during, obviously, the development phase, but this game may also have a lot of added content after the game is released, which makes me wonder if Starfield is going to have a long shelf life, which is fine, right? If Starfield ends up being an amazing game, I want to get a bunch of content for this game. I want to have years and years of content so I can spend much more time in this game universe, even separate from mods. But if that's the case, and if Starfield is going to have perhaps one of the longer shelf lives of any other Bethesda Game Studios single-player game, then when is TES 6? When is The Elder Scrolls 6 going to come out? Like 5 years after Starfield? 2025, 2026? I mean, so far that seems like that's technically possible and something you should be prepared for. Well, obviously this is just speculation. Basing when The Elder Scrolls 6 will come out on a game that isn't even out yet is kind of a silly thing to do, but nonetheless, I would think it's safer to expect The Elder Scrolls 6 to not come out any sooner than 2025. It'll probably come out later than 2025. My guess is around 2026, but if that's the case, that means TES 6 is going to be even bigger than Starfield, which is a space game. So what does that mean? High Rock and Hammerfell, and Cyrodiil and Morrowind and Akavir, and your mom's house? Who knows? Only time will tell. That's basically everything I wanted to talk about in today's video. Like I said, this gets me super excited for Starfield. Knowing Starfield is big and long just gets me super hyped. But yeah, if you're hyped for Starfield being very big and very long, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn notifications on. And as always, huge shout out and much appreciation to everyone that has supported the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. I am making an updated list of everyone who has supported the channel ever, even as of a couple days ago, and that will be featured at the end of every single one of my videos here soon. This is a lot of, I have to go through a lot of stuff because my hard drive crashed. I keep saying this at the end of my videos, but I just want to reiterate, this is a bigger project. It should be done here in a couple days, but nonetheless, if you want to get a permanent future video shout out at the end of every single one of my videos, you can support the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all this and more are down in the description below, and as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when the hype for Starfield is very big and very long.
It just works.